General Hospital will reveal exciting details on Friday, February 28, 2025. First, Christina could never shake off the resentment she harbored toward Ava. The memory of that fateful moment, when Ava caused her to fall and lose her unborn child, was something that haunted her every day. It wasn't just an accident in Christina's eyes, it was an unforgivable act that robbed her of something precious. Every time she crossed paths with Ava, the bitterness resurfaced, and she found herself consumed by anger all over again. To her, Ava was a destructive force, a woman whose selfishness and recklessness had brought pain to too many people. That was why, no matter what Ava did or said, Christina could never view her as anything other than a threat. Ava, however, refused to be dismissed so easily. She was determined to rebuild her life and reclaim her place in Avery's. She had spent years battling Sunny for access to her daughter, and she wasn't about to let Christina stand in her way. From Ava's perspective, she had made her mistakes, but she was still Avery's mother, and that was something no one could take away from her. She wanted to be there for her daughter, to give her the love and attention she deserved. But the more she pushed for a role in Avery's life, the more she faced resistance, especially from Christina, who seemed determined to erase her from existence. No amount of reasoning or pleading could make Christina see that she had changed, that she wasn't the same reckless woman she used to be. Christina, however, remained steadfast in her belief that Ava was unworthy of being in Avery's life. To her, allowing Ava access to the little girl meant exposing her to a toxic influence. She saw Ava as manipulative, someone who only cared about herself and had no regard for the consequences of her actions. The idea of Avery growing up under such an influence filled Christina with dread. She knew what Ava was capable of, she had experienced it firsthand. And she wasn't about to let Avery become another casualty of Ava's selfishness. She viewed herself as Avery's protector, someone who had to make sure the little girl was shielded from the chaos that Ava inevitably brought with her. Sunny, on the other hand, saw things differently. Despite all the history between him and Ava, he couldn't ignore the fact that Avery was still her daughter. He knew the pain of growing up without a mother and didn't want to put his child through that if it could be avoided. No matter what Ava had done, she loved Avery, and keeping them apart wouldn't necessarily be the best thing for their daughter. He believed that Avery deserved to have her mother in her life, even if that relationship needed boundaries. Sunny wasn't blind to Ava's faults, but he also wasn't willing to deny Avery the chance to have a mother's presence. This stance infuriated Christina, who saw it as a betrayal of everything she had suffered. How could Sunny, of all people, be so willing to let Ava back in after everything? The conflict between Christina and Ava only grew more intense, with neither willing to back down. Christina saw herself as fighting to protect Avery, while Ava was desperate to reclaim what she had lost. Sunny, caught in the middle, struggled to balance his daughter's concerns with what he thought was right for Avery. But no matter who was right or wrong, the reality remained the same: Avery was the one caught in the middle of a war she never asked to be a part of. She was a little girl who simply wanted to love both her parents, but the adults in her life were too consumed by their own battles to see the damage they were causing. And as the tension between them reached a breaking point, it became clear that this fight was far from over. Second, Isaiah and Jordan sat together in a quiet moment, their conversation carrying a warmth that neither of them had expected. For a long time, Jordan had been so focused on her responsibilities and the weight of her work that she had barely allowed herself to consider the possibility of something more personal, something just for her. But Isaiah had a way of making her feel at ease, as if she could let down her guard without fear. His words were gentle yet confident, and when he finally extended an invitation for them to go on a proper date, she felt a rush of happiness she hadn't felt in a long time. It was a simple gesture, but one that carried so much meaning. For the first time in a while, Jordan allowed herself to look forward to something beyond her job, beyond her responsibilities. And as they sat together, sharing this moment, a sense of warmth surrounded them, deepening their connection in a way that felt both natural and inevitable. Yet, amidst the budding emotions, the weight of reality was impossible to ignore. The conversation inevitably shifted to the pressing matter at hand, Cyrus. His sudden disappearance had thrown the entire department into high alert, and Jordan was at the center of the investigation. She spoke with a mix of frustration and determination, knowing that PCPD was working tirelessly to track him down. There was no telling where he had gone or what his next move might be, and that uncertainty was enough to put everyone on edge. Isaiah listened intently, understanding the gravity of the situation. As much as he wanted to focus on their growing connection, he knew that this looming danger was something neither of them could afford to ignore. Jordan was firm in her stance. Cyrus had to be found. He had taken too many lives, left behind too much devastation, and justice demanded that he face the consequences of his actions. Every lead, every piece of evidence, was being pursued, and she refused to let up until he was held accountable. Isaiah admired her unwavering dedication, the strength in her voice as she spoke about the case. He had always respected her, but in this moment, he saw just how deeply committed she was to doing the right thing, no matter how difficult it was. And while he knew the weight of this burden rested heavily on her shoulders, he also wanted her to know that she wasn't carrying it alone. Despite the grim reality of the search for Cyrus, Isaiah and Jordan found solace in each other's presence. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a silent promise that they would navigate whatever came next together. The night didn't erase the challenges ahead, nor did it offer immediate answers, but it gave them something else, hope. A reason to keep moving forward, not just in the pursuit of justice, but in their own lives as well. As they parted ways, there was a lingering sense of warmth, a quiet certainty that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Third, Olivia had always been strategic in her business moves, and with Metro Court and Aurora under pressure, she knew it was time for a bold approach. She devised new policies aimed at restructuring both companies, subtly pushing Drew out of the picture. Her ideas weren't just about business, they carried a personal edge, especially considering Drew's recent actions. Olivia recognized that Carly, who still harbored deep resentment toward Drew for betraying Michael with Willow, would likely be on board with any plan that made him pay the price for his choices. And she was right. When Olivia presented her ideas to Carly, the reaction was immediate. Carly's eyes lit up with determination, her distaste for Drew fueling her enthusiasm. The betrayal he had inflicted on Michael was something she could never forgive. From the moment she discovered his affair with Willow, she had viewed him as nothing more than a traitor, someone undeserving of the respect or loyalty he once had. Seeing Olivia's strategy as a way to make him suffer both professionally and personally, Carly quickly decided to back the plan. With their combined influence, they began implementing subtle yet effective changes. Olivia adjusted Metro Court's partnerships, cutting off any advantages Drew had in securing business deals, while Carly leveraged her connections to ensure Aurora faced increasing competition. They were careful, methodical, and relentless. Drew wouldn't even see it coming until it was too late. Every move was calculated to push him into a corner, making it impossible for him to maintain control of his business empire. Despite their mutual ambition, Olivia and Carly weren't reckless. They understood that taking down Drew required patience and precision. Olivia ensured that every decision made within Metro Court appeared professional and justifiable, while Carly played her part by influencing key stakeholders in Aurora. They operated with the perfect balance of subtlety and force, knowing that if they executed their plan correctly, Drew would soon be facing the consequences of his actions in a way he never anticipated. As the plan progressed, Carly found herself more invested than she had expected. She wasn't just helping Olivia, she was reclaiming power, proving that no betrayal would go unanswered. The partnership between them grew stronger, built on mutual goals and shared determination. And as they watched their efforts begin to take effect, they knew one thing for certain: Drew would regret ever crossing them. When Molly and Cody sat down for a heartfelt conversation, there was an undeniable shift in the air between them. The tension from their past disagreements had long since faded, replaced by something deeper: understanding, vulnerability, and perhaps even an unspoken attraction. It wasn't the first time they had connected, but this time, the walls between them truly crumbled. Molly, who had always been guarded about her emotions, found herself opening up in a way she hadn't expected. She spoke about the struggles in her marriage with TJ, the painful realization that her dreams of motherhood might never come true, and the emptiness that had begun to consume her despite her efforts to push forward. She had spent so much time pretending she was okay, but with Cody, she didn't have to. Cody listened intently, his usual bravado subdued by the raw honesty in Molly's voice. He wasn't used to people trusting him like this, especially not someone like her, someone who had always seemed so sure of herself, so in control. And yet, as she spoke, he saw a different side of her, one that resonated deeply with his own pain. In return, he shared his own struggles, the heartbreak of letting go of Sasha, the loneliness that had crept in since then, and the fear that he might never truly belong anywhere. He hadn't planned on being this open, but something about Molly made it easy. She didn't judge him, didn't dismiss his feelings, and for the first time in a while, he felt truly seen. As the conversation continued, the connection between them grew undeniable. It wasn't just about shared pain or mutual understanding, it was something more. The way Molly looked at him, the way her expression softened when he spoke, the way he instinctively wanted to protect her from the hurt she carried, all of it pointed to something deeper than either of them had anticipated. There was an intimacy in their words, a spark that neither of them could ignore. It wasn't rushed or forced, but it was real. Cody found himself drawn to Molly in a way that surprised him. He had always admired her strength, her intelligence, but now, he saw her in a new light, someone who was searching for comfort, for meaning, just like he was. And Molly, despite everything, felt the same pull. She hadn't expected to find solace in Cody of all people, but here he was, understanding her in ways she hadn't even realized she needed. By the time their conversation ended, something had changed between them. It was subtle, unspoken, but undeniable. Cody truly cared about her, and Molly, whether she was ready to admit it or not, cared about him too. Whatever this was between them, it wasn't fleeting. It was something real, something that neither of them could walk away from easily. And as they parted ways, both of them knew, this was just the beginning. Finally, Sasha hadn't expected an apology, least of all from Jason. When he approached her, his expression was unreadable, but there was a heaviness in his tone that made her pause. Jason rarely spoke more than necessary, but this time, his words carried weight. He told her he was sorry for not being able to continue the lie that he was the father of her unborn child, sorry for putting her in this position, and most of all, sorry for the consequences she might now have to face because of his decision. Sasha was taken aback. She had known Jason long enough to understand that he didn't make choices lightly, and if he was pulling back, there had to be a reason beyond personal discomfort. Still, the suddenness of it all left her feeling exposed. Fear crept into her mind. If Jason was stepping away, did that mean she was truly alone in this? Had she miscalculated in relying on him, even for a short time? Jason, sensing her unease, didn't leave her waiting for answers. He explained the real reason behind his decision, Cyrus. The situation surrounding his disappearance had become more complicated than expected, and Jason was at the center of it. There was a growing risk that legal trouble would catch up with him, and if that happened, the last thing he wanted was for Sasha to be dragged into it. More than that, he knew that keeping up the lie about her baby's father could make things worse for her in the long run. If anything happened to him, she would be left to face the fallout alone. Sasha listened carefully, her mind racing. She understood his logic, even if it wasn't what she wanted to hear. Jason had always been someone who operated on cold, hard reality, and this was no different. He was cutting ties to protect her. But at the same time, his words only confirmed what she had feared all along, her connection to Cyrus, even in death, was far from over. As much as she wanted to argue, to find another way, Sasha knew Jason had already made up his mind. He had chosen to step back for both their sakes, and now, she had to figure out where that left her. The fear, the uncertainty, it was all closing in, but one thing was clear, the danger wasn't over, and she might have to face whatever came next alone.